Well, today I am so excited and so honored. It's Colli from ColliTalks Transformative Conversations, where we explore healing through the deep layers of the soul, unraveling trauma, reclaiming belonging, and discovering how the seen and unseen shape our lives. But today, we're going to go deep. And I am so excited because I'm joined by the deeply intuitive and wise Thea Trussler, an extraordinary Canadian woman who made the conscious decision to leave her homeland and settle in the tranquil countryside of southeast Cork, Ireland. Thea, she spent so many years living in Canada, and she's giggling in behind there, in different parts of Canada, rooted in places like Ontario, British Columbia, where she was immersed in both rural and urban landscapes. Her life's work began in mental health, supporting individuals through some of their darkest and most transformative moments. She has worked on the front lines of crisis intervention, career change for those with disabilities, and delivered powerful presentations at both community and international levels. But what makes her journey so profound is how she has bridged her mental health expertise with her lifelong connection to animals. Over the past decade, she has merged these worlds, training family dogs to assist people with disabilities, especially neurodivergent children and adults. Today, we will explore how trauma and healing not live, but live in the body, how animals help us regulate and remember who we truly are, and what it means to live a life led by both intuition and deep service. Thea, I'm thrilled to have you here. Thank you for joining Colli Talks.
Oh my goodness, Colli, what an introduction. I'm a little teary here. Thank you.
Aw, well, you are so deserving of that and more, my dear. You know, our Thea and we go back, way back, and we'll get into that a little later. We go back into a beautiful area called Nelson, British Columbia, where magic and miracles happen. And Thea just happens to be one of the miracles that happened. And I get teary in Nelson. So, yeah. So, girl, I'm going to start off here with, the mental health and trauma work. You've spent decades supporting people in mental health crisis. And how has your perspective on healing evolved over the years?
Well, the deep understanding of others' trauma, and through the work that I was doing, I experienced my own trauma as well. Doing frontline work, where being first on the scene after a terrible murder in Prince George, listening to people's trauma can also bring on vicarious trauma. And understanding that our brains actually change as a result of trauma. We process information differently. For some people, now you spoke on the intuitive aspect, for some people, because needing to be hyper vigilant about what your environment is, they've tapped into that ancestral, tribal, intuitive ability where they would be able to read what their environment is, but also be able to sense something that's coming up and prepare for it. Now, intuition or, psychics or tarot or any of that, it's just like having road signs. So if you have a road sign that's saying you might want to slow down, there's a dangerous curve ahead, it will be up to you if you're going to zip around the corner saying, I've got a Maserati, I'm fine, or you'll take that into account and slow down. And our patterns, sometimes with trauma, are not the healthiest, and other times we've learned. So changing those patterns so that we learn is probably the most profound personal growth experience ever.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So, trauma is multi-layered. We understand language differently. We even to the point of feeling temperature differently. And I worked a lot with PTSD, so post-traumatic stress disorder,
Right.
clients in the service dog world, and they were both first responders and veterans.
Mm.
and hearing their stories and watching when they are matched up with the dog. And then I still am in conversation with a number of them that
Ah.
the dog has literally saved their life, where they were so isolated and they couldn't go out to do shopping or anything. They'd have to have somebody come and deliver things, sometimes not even able to open the door,
Mm.
to now having their freedom back and all the skills that dogs bring to the table or to the floor.
Mhm.
Depends
Yeah.
on how tall your dog is just remarkable.
Wow. Wow. Just amazing when you think of the bond, right? The bond, and that there is
Mhm.
a bond, absolutely. And what role does unprocessed or systemic trauma in what we commonly label as, mental illness? What role
Mhm.
does it play?
Well, it how best to describe that? It is like having a physical disability that you can't move forward in life.
Mm.
That there's so much energy being spent on just finding ways to feel safe. And for some, it becomes obsessive compulsive disorders,
Okay.
where they have to do a ritual of things before they can leave their home. And if they don't do it in a certain order, chaos can occur. And that is the brain and body trying to control their environment because they've felt so out of control in the past.
Mhm.
There's other aspects around the hypervigilance, and that can creep into sleep time too. So we train dogs to do nightmare or night terror interruptions
Oh,
that are safe. So if a first responder or a veteran are reliving in their dream time the trauma, which is the brain trying to process and make sense of something that is nonsensical,
right.
that the dog may be in danger if they're to just go up and start nudging them. So we train the dogs to sometimes just pull off the blanket
Okay.
or to turn on the light. So, yeah. Now, once the person awakens and they go, okay, well, I'm here, and they try and pull themselves back together again, the dog has been trained to lie over top of them. And through that deep pressure, that's when that kicks in the parasympathetic nervous system. So it's like the weighted blankets or a long, beautiful hug.
Mhm.
It is truly healing when there's that deep pressure that's going on there. And the
Hmm.
dog, even before the night terror occurs, they
Mhm.
can smell cortisol.
Oh,
So
wow.
that's stress hormone. So they may be sound asleep and they smell it because they've been trained to smell the cortisol levels.
Right?
So they're already on alert before the kicking and thrashing that may occur by the person.
Oh,
It's just blows my mind.
yeah.
I mean, we've been together for 40,000 years with domesticated dogs, and we actually have 75% shared DNA. Like that's wow,
That's
blows my
huge.
mind.
That's
That's
huge.
huge.
Oh my.
So and part of that, I know it's like, how?
Mhm.
But we hunted together, we traveled together, we shared the same food, we slept together. So, even the touching
Mhm.
ends up creating a DNA transfer. And that domesticated dogs, they can communicate with us on so many different levels. So they can wiggle their eyebrows where wild dogs can't. So they can
Really?
express. Yeah,
Ah,
I know. I I love the
incredible.
surprise. So their ability to communicate, like today I was out at the horse races and I had my Great Dane Fergal,
Mhm.
and oh my God, he was working the crowd for treats and chips, French fries here. So he was wiggling his eyebrows at everybody. They're, "Oh, he's so cute. Can I get him a treat?" They work it for the fun aspect as well, but also to communicate, like, "I'm concerned about you," or
Yeah.
whatever.
Oh
Yeah.
my god, fascinating. I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. So in your opinion, what are some of the most overlooked emotional needs of people with disabilities and traditional systems that aren't being addressed?
I tell people that, okay, as human beings, we need
Mhm.
food and water and shelter, but as important is a sense of belonging.
Mm.
So people who are dealing with mental health issues,
Mhm.
crises, whatever, may isolate or are isolated from others. They they're not able to work or go to school or socialize as others would. And so that insulation exacerbates any mental illness.
Okay.
So that is probably the most critical. And I'm going back to the dogs now.
Mhm.
Who is happier to see you than your dog if you've gone, 30 seconds outside the door and come back in? Um, it truly is an amazing belonging. Like they are family,
And they know.
and they know.
And they
Yes.
know. They know who they can trust and who they can't.
Mhm.
Absolutely, for sure. Now, with your work, right? You've worked with individuals facing career loss and
Mhm.
identity crisis, right? So how do you
Mhm.
guide someone through finding meaning after everything familiar is stripped away? Because as I know, the subconscious loves to keep us hostage in the familiar. So how do
Mhm.
you guide someone?
So I used a narrative approach, and
Hmm.
so people would tell me a story about what they would like to experience in their life,
Okay.
where they want to go. And I'm saying it's just storytelling. And pretend I'm your fairy godmother. I use that adage sometimes. Like, forget about whatever your schooling is right now. What is it that really makes your heart and soul shine?
Hmm.
And they will say, I'm creative, or I really love animals, or I love working with children or elders, whatever. Is that a part of their past experience? And is that attached to the trauma?
Mm.
Is it something that we can look at in terms of upgrading education? And there's so many programs with the Canadian government and other governments as well around reintegration back into the workforce
Hmm.
and having the supports to do so. So education sometimes is the first step.
Okay.
And what I was doing was, okay, so perhaps they've gone through and they've gotten a diploma in animal care.
Right.
And then they're trying to find their first job, but there's that big gap in their resume. And there's always questions from a potential employer like, you haven't worked in 7 years.
Mm.
So there's red flags that are going up. So part of my role through the Canadian Mental Health Association was advocating to employers saying, this is someone who will have additional supports. So I was doing job coaching. I would work
Oh,
with the employer.
okay.
I would go in and do an assessment on the workplace. If they were going into a work environment that was office oriented,
Hmm.
is it in the middle of a big, you know, 100 people in cubicles? How can the person who deals with an anxiety disorder or attention deficit work in that environment?
Right.
And making accommodations for that person, either having higher walls around them, having more plants around them, being able to take additional breaks, but they would also either be working longer that day to make up for extra time when they had to step away.
Hmm.
So working with the employer to make it a win-win, because the person is so dedicated to get back to work, like this is their dream, that need to belong.
Right.
And
Exactly.
so, yeah, their enthusiasm and loyalty to work with that employer is, you know, it is an employee world right now that people jump through jobs regularly, but to have somebody that, okay, I'm loyal, I want to stay here, this is comfortable for me, and you're working with me and you understand. So the other aspect though is that a lot of people are so fearful still of disclosure,
Hmm.
potential employer. Now, that disclosure to a potential employer doesn't go out to the rest of the staff. It's up to the individual if they want to share that they have special needs, be it how their cubicle is set up or whatever.
Right?
So having that approach to be able to disclose, feel safe, know that now Canada has, and it was the very first country in the world, the psychological health and safety legislation that all the government employees are under. It's not law yet, but it is through the health and safety standards.
Okay.
And so you cannot be fired because you have a mental illness, but you still need to be able to do your work.
Right.
And, COVID was actually a bit of a gift
Yes, it
because
was.
yeah, so
Yeah.
people can work from home and so many skills, people who have anxiety disorders or they're on the spectrum are
Hmm.
brilliant with doing whatever computer work. And so they can do that now at home in the safety of their own home and be
Exactly.
able to check in with their employers. So the landscape has changed a lot
Hmm.
and that's brilliant. So there's hope for more successes out there.
Lovely. And so with all that, I mean, how do you stay grounded and emotionally resilient when working in that in fields so intertwined with human pain?
Well, to be honest, the frontline work was challenging. And after 30 plus years, I'm in my 60s of doing frontline work and working with some really serious situations.
Mhm.
Being able to move into working with service dogs to
Mhm.
help with psychiatric needs was such a blessing because sadly, there are just simply not enough services globally around mental health issues.
No.
And I have a bit of a philosophy around that. There's more awareness. I talk about the Oprah generation. We talk about everything and share our feelings, but also that humans are not really geared to being in urban settings
Mhm.
that need more green around us. And urban settings have become more and more anxiety provoking. So it is a global phenomena, not
Right.
just Canada. So being able to work with dogs and
Mhm.
having immediate, absolute immediate relief from their symptoms and feeling secure and supported and that they had myself, I was the mental health consultant for the team, knowing didn't matter where they were in Canada, that they were just a phone call away and how to deal with what the next step was with their dog
Mhm.
and just having that sounding board. Now, I never went into therapy with them in this service. It was, okay, I know that this is your therapist, this is your doctor. We would have open conversations with all of those. And have you checked in with them lately? And sometimes that's all a person needs. Do you need some additional support? Do you want me to call your therapist to
Right.
contact you? Because we would have those written contracts for information and sharing.
Mhm.
And yeah, it was a game changer knowing that it was something that was immediately available.
Mhm.
The
Mhm.
profound effects of having a dog there to support, and the outcomes have literally been life-saving for people.
Mhm. And, it's interesting because I was just thinking in terms of your relationship with animals becoming a bridge between the mental health and, the assistance work you do now, right? And
Mhm.
and can you share a powerful moment where a dog made a breakthrough, say with a child or adult that humans couldn't reach?
Absolutely. I
Oh, I love
have,
it. Thank you.
this rock star. She's just this little wee Labradoodle, but she's small. She looks more like a toy poodle,
Mhm.
and they're near Dublin.
Mhm.
The family are Romanian,
Okay.
and there was horrendous things that had happened in Romania,
Right.
and so the wife is dealing with deep PTSD
Mm.
that also then translated into the physical as ME. So chronic fatigue syndrome. And
Mhm.
so she's in a wheelchair now.
Oh.
And she had pretty much given up on life. Brilliant woman, very, very, very successful in business, as her husband was as well. And I went up to train this little Phoebe. I think
Aw.
Phoebe's been here for a month while her parents are on holidays. And so Phoebe, after the second day of working with her, the things that they wanted was for Phoebe to find the husband because he had now had to work from home with their
Okay.
business
Okay.
as the primary carer for mom and the wife, sorry. So finding him in this very large mansion that they have, being able to fetch the medical bag,
Oh.
and then also because of the ME, her blood pressure would drop so much that lying on her chest would help raise the blood pressure as well.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, the critical thinking process that Phoebe went through, there was an incident back in November, and the the owner, the woman, had stood up out of her wheelchair trying to just get into the couch, and she
Right?
collapsed.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so first, Phoebe went over, laid on her chest for a little bit, and then, okay, so there was a response.
Mhm.
Went off, found the husband, and on her way, grabbed the medicine bag and brought it back.
Oh, my word.
So her blood pressure was so low that if she didn't get the medication and the attention immediately, she would have died.
Oh, my
And
word.
she was still on this critical life and death energy because her body is shutting down. So she said, "Oh my God, I feel like I have a guardian angel with me all the time now."
Aw.
And that she has been able to do this critical thinking aspect. And she's done numerous times now, parts of that. Thank God there's been no critical incident again, but
Mhm,
wow,
mhm.
what a little rock star.
No
And that
kidding.
was
I'm
2 days
like,
of training with her. Yeah. And it's all
wow.
through games, training this dog, doing things through games, but her knowing that mommy's in trouble
Yeah.
and her being able to figure out, "Okay, I've gotta bring all the games together," was like, I was crying after that. That was incredible.
No kidding. I mean, what a miracle.
Mhm.
Really, and just for them to have access to you to be able to do this is it's like, you're a miracle. I mean, it's just incredible.
They they have been denied any access to any assistance dogs because, number 1, there's just not enough to go around, and number 2 is that ME
Mm,
and the PTSD are not recognized as disabilities for a service dog here in Ireland.
really?
So it's a small country. We have 6 million something people, and the service dogs are really towards visually impaired and autism. There is another organization that's trying to get started with the PTSD dogs,
Mhm.
but you can't even contact them yet because they've been so overwhelmed that they pulled that contact avenue. So you have to have some like secret password to get a hold of them.
Wow.
So trying to fill that gap of, they're most of our pets want
Mhm.
to help us out. If you have a cold and you're feeling really lousy,
Right.
and whether it's the cat or the dog that curls up with you for the entire day and not pestering you, they just know that you're not
Mhm.
yourself.
Mhm.
So I go out and I do an assessment on a family pet, whether
Mhm.
they would dog. I haven't integrated into cats yet. Um,
I love it.
to see the willingness and the ability
Mm.
at the first meeting. I don't want to set people up for unrealistic expectations.
Right. Of course not. Yes.
Yeah, and this isn't for the public access piece, which is very political, particularly here in Europe.
Mhm.
I mean, in North America, there is the emotional support animals that got a little bit out of control as well. Emotional support peacocks that they were trying to get onto airplanes. So that was just ridiculous.
Mhm.
But to be able to train dogs some of these skills that will help in the home for children on the spectrum or adults with a variety of different physical and psychological needs.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
I love my job.
Oh my god, no kidding. I mean, what's not to love? I mean, it's amazing, right? I mean, it's just like, "Oh, wow." Like magic, miracles. I love it.
It
What's
feels like a miracle.
It does, it is, absolutely. And what's something, you know, through all you've experienced, what's something most people misunderstand about assistance, the assistance dogs versus the emotional support animals or pets?
So the assistance dogs, when we use that term, is in Europe, it's either assistance dogs or guide dogs
Right?
for visual impairment. So in North America, we use the term service dogs. And here they have not opened up the can of worms with regards to emotional support animals.
Oh, okay.
Just because of it was actually me going to I was working with guide dogs here in Ireland, and they asked me what my perspective was, and I'm like, "Oh, don't go there with the emotional support animals."
Mhm.
There was no testing, there was no regulation, you'd go to a doctor and you would get a letter that, yes, this person would benefit from having their dog with them. And yeah, I agree, having your dog, but there's no training, there's no having appropriate behavior in public. I remember being up in Ottawa with one of our service dogs, and I was going through testing for them. So annually,
Okay.
according to Assistance Dogs International, we would have to go in and test the dogs to make sure that they were still being able to do all their tasks and they were healthy and the bond and everything. So we're in a mall, and this other emotional support animal
Mhm.
attacked us, literally attacked us
Oh
in a
my
mall. So that took away from, ours being in best and didn't react to the situation. The other person did pull their dog back, but it was vicious.
oh my
And
word.
so there's so much bad PR that occurs from one incident.
Mm.
And oh, I wish there was more. I don't think it has moved at all with regards to you need to go through certain testing. Even therapy dogs so that visit retirement homes and
Mhm.
hospitals, and they have to go through certain testing to make sure that they are appropriate in a public environment. There
Right?
was none of that with emotional support animals.
Wow.
So we know that dogs can help, but there needs to be legislation and testing and training in place
Mhm.
to ensure that you're not blackening any of the you know, legitimate service dogs that are out there. And there are people who feel that service dogs, they have no fun and they're invest and they've got to behave and it's being cruel to them,
Mhm.
but they don't see the full life of what that dog is doing. So other than being in a public environment, when they're home, they get to play and romp in the knot and jacket. It's so funny.
And they
As
get
soon as
their
they put their
treats.
yeah, well, as soon as they have their jacket on, it's like putting the business suit on,
Yeah, they
and
know.
they're all they know that I'm working right now, but you take the jacket off, and they can be the goofiest, playful pup, and so they have a rich and full life, and they're loved, and they're needed. So the misconception that is out there around
Mhm.
service dogs and some cruelty that goes with that, because dogs are so geared to helping us,
Right?
they are really happy to have a job. Most dogs need jobs or they get into trouble. They chew your shoes or a couch or whatever
Sounds like
happens to
some
be.
kids I know.
Oh, Lordy, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
It's great. It's true, It's like, you know, it's about discipline and it's not about being brutal or mean or cruel. It's just, hey, everybody needs a little discipline.
Yeah,
I do.
socially acceptable behavior. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So, what have what have animals taught you about healing that books and therapy rooms could never provide?
Oh my goodness. I also work with horses.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Uh, one of the things about a horse is that they can send out their electromagnetic field 5 times larger than a human can.
Oh, wow.
They help us regulate our nervous system, our heart rate. They know exactly where you're at that time. And so equine therapy, which is,
Mhm,
technically called hippotherapy, apparently they're related to hippos, but that equine therapy, people who just come over to spend time with horses
mhm,
feel better. It's like, why do I feel so much better? Well, they get you and their interaction with you. Now, usually I'm working with thoroughbreds and,
mhm.
thoroughbred will find out ways to kill themselves and you in a day if they're hyper. But you go in as I do. I do massage and so on with horses. You go in with good intent and you get 1,000-fold back.
Oh, wow.
Mm. Yeah, it's
Mhm,
just remarkable around animals and that the I mean, even with us humans, it's 90% nonverbal
mhm,
communication that occurs between humans.
mhm,
And so think about that. We're doing 100% with dogs, but they do understand. Actually, they understand up to a from 2 to 5-year-old amount of vocabulary. It's amazing. My Great Dane is like, I'm sure he understands sentences now. I have to spell things out. He'll spell shortly, but that's Virgil. He's extra special. But
aw,
just knowing that there is that communication that
mhm,
you can't intellectually perhaps understand, but we get it when we're in each other's company. And when animals seek out your energy, the best thing ever is going to a party and the family dog comes over and spends time with you.
mhm.
That's the most precious gift. Or
Yeah.
cat.
I
Yeah.
get it, I get it. I know that feeling well. Sometimes too much attention from
Oh,
3
never too much.
from 3 dogs. Well, no, I'm talking 3 dogs, 3 grandchildren. It's like,
Oh,
womp. I love it though. It's all good. It's all good. So, my dear, you've gone through a lot of life transitions and now living abroad. So, what led you to leave Canada and choose Ireland as your new home? Like, was it intuitive, practical, or a bit of both?
it was a bit of everything, a whole pile of magic. I first came over in 2011
Mhm.
after my mother's passing, and I wanted to write a book. So she had Irish ancestry.
Right?
And so I came over for a month and absolutely fell in love with the land. I made friends right away. I'm a bit of a talker, so it wasn't hard for me to meet people, but
Yeah.
those people I met are still my friends.
Aw,
And so I started bringing retreats over to Ireland as a way to finance my trips.
brilliant.
And so I would rent an entire castle. There would be, up to 12, 15 people. And we'd spend a week of traveling around, going to sacred sites and doing inner work, everything from mindfulness to yoga to tarot to intuitive development, ancestral retreat that I did one time, and it was actually on my ancestral land, which was interesting.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah, so down in Galway, I discovered the ancestral home, which is a castle, but it's held up by vines and all the history behind that. So the land truly speaks to you. It's such an ancient, ancient energy here.
Hmm.
And where I live right now, I look across the field to what they call a ring fort.
Mhm.
And the ring fort is between 4 to 6,000 years old. And there are tunnels underneath that
Oh my
lead to
god.
2 other forts. So these ring forts are attributed to the fairy folk, and we're not talking Disney fairies. It
Yeah.
is the they're also referred to as the gentlefolk,
Mm.
and that locals absolutely believe in them and their energy still being here. So I was offered a job in 2019
Okay.
to come over and work with guide dogs. And so I sold my home. That was December. It was Christmas that I would always come over and work with guide dogs and do training around mental health for their staff.
Hmm.
I sold my home March the 4th, 2020. And then the pandemic hit. Woo!
Timing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I ended up on the very first flight over in July of 2020, still had aspirations that everything was going to be good. And I found this gorgeous property. It's a thatched cottage. It's over 300 years old, looking out on this ring fort.
Wow.
And it was about half an hour from the workplace. And I have landed. Now, we had probably the most profound lockdown. So I couldn't leave my home and travel any further than 5 kilometers because they
Wow.
had police checks. So the Gardaí were out and you had to say where you were going to. And I'm like, I have to get into town. Like 5 kilometers would just get me into a cow pasture. So I'm going into town for groceries, etc. So I've had to be very creative since. But this country, this land, these people own me.
Aw.
And it felt like coming home. It was
Mm.
the true sense of belonging, of
Hmm.
safety. You know, here I am putting it out on the podcast. I don't lock my car anymore. I don't lock my home anymore just because I feel so secure
Hmm.
in countryside where I am and I know my neighbors.
Beautiful.
Plus I have a really big dog too, but
Yeah. Yeah.
but just that sense that I don't have to be in a panic to lock everything up behind me each time.
Right.
And beautiful things have opened up to me since. Sadly, the guide dogs position didn't transpire only because they're funding, because we were on lockdown longer
Hmm.
than anyone else, months of lockdown.
Wow.
And so that really ate up any of their reserves.
Hmm.
They an awful lot on donations, and everybody was in survival mode.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. And
Yeah.
that's something I was going to ask you is, and you kind of covered it with regards to, how your nervous system responded to the major transition, right? Especially because of it was at COVID. And, so
Mm.
biggest thing I'm getting from this is that you settled into that complete sense of belonging, which is
Well,
huge.
absolutely. And the true sense of community where people
Hmm.
are looking out for each other. And I know part of it when I first arrived was like, oh my God, who took over the thatched cottage? And I would see a woman there. So I started having the tractors, the farmers dropping by and saying, "Do you need anything?" and chatting. And, oh, it's a Canadian. So then, like, the entire community, I was the talk of the community.
Oh.
People just going out of their way to help. It was a beautiful experience where I felt welcome, and the medicine that I needed for the resilience that
Hmm.
was called on within my body and my mind and my soul to go through. Like, this was the college needed an awful lot of work when I
Hmm.
arrived.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I make jokes about, I used to be really excited about shoes, but now it's power tools.
Especially that wonderful store in Nelson called Shoes for the Soul.
Oh
Yeah,
gosh, I love that
exactly, right, I know,
store.
right? Oh
Yeah,
my goodness. So, there's
yeah.
a lot of difference, I would think, I don't wanna put that out there, but from your perspective, what differences do you see between how Ireland and Canada, approach trauma, mental health, and community care?
Well, I think every country, to be honest,
Mhm.
is scrambling trying to address mental health in their communities.
Mm.
And Ireland has sadly the highest per capita number of suicides
Oh,
of any
no.
developed country in the world. And that's because of so many different things around the men don't talk about it as primarily the male demographic. It was a very conservative, church-oriented control that was
Mhm.
going on with the country, and just coming out of that. Now the demographic is actually older men that are more at risk.
Okay.
There's also younger men now that are dealing with addictions, a lot of gambling here.
Oh.
Um, so yeah, I mean, there's bookies, multiple bookies in any town that you go to,
Mhm.
and there's the community called the Travelers.
Okay.
So the Travelers are historically they were displaced Irish out of their homes when the English put such heavy taxes on that they ended up being kicked out of their homes. So
Oh.
they became the Tinkers. And the Tinkers would travel from town to town and do, making pots, fixing this, fixing that, tarot card reading, whatever.
Mhm.
And they are a community that is seen as a separate culture.
Mhm.
And until recently, they would still be in caravans and moving around. Now, a lot of the travelers are static. So they may still live in a caravan,
Okay.
but they are staying in one certain place. And there's a lot of negative elements to the community, which exacerbates their situation within the broader community, so that they're misunderstood. The reason for gang type things that are going on, the fighting between their own clans, etc., has isolated them even more. So there's quite a high level of suicide in that Irish community.
Mm.
Now, you translate that into Canada, and
Mhm.
you look at the Indigenous population, which I also worked with in places like Haida,
Right.
and knowing that when you are isolated and marginalized,
Mhm.
that bad things can happen.
Right.
So addiction, suicide, so on and so forth. So the self-medicating globally, the
Mhm.
drug epidemic globally, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Uh, People
horrific.
go to drugs and alcohol in order to deal with their mental illness.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so every country is doing the best that they can. Ireland has some great programs, but it's still not keeping pace with what the needs are.
Mhm.
And it is an epidemic,
Yeah.
truly. You know, we know better. It's not hidden behind closed doors as it used to
Right.
be. So, talking about mental illness, there's so much in terms of the mass media,
Right.
which is great. So being able to talk about it. And every single time when I tell people, doesn't matter what their walk of life is, that I'm in the mental health field, they disclose to me. It doesn't matter
Mhm.
if it's the guy delivering propane to me, or I was at a New Year's Eve event and there's a whole traveler community that were there.
Mhm.
And I just happened to say that. Well, lo and behold, on New Year's Eve, I had this circle of people, families that were around me and disclosing things, and the understanding that, they send in social workers that just don't get our community. They don't understand. They come with solutions that aren't appropriate for who
Yeah.
we are. And so coming out of university with social work degrees doesn't always translate into the reality of human beings.
No,
Yeah.
it does not. Trauma, it's so interesting about trauma, right? It just blows me away how, and I'm, you know, I just, exactly, a certificate and an office and a 20-year-old
Mhm.
attempting to not even understand, but to assist someone who has just had the whole family blow up because they've had a past in war and now their family is blowing up. I mean, yeah. Anyway, we could go on about that, but that's not what this is about.
Yeah.
But it's true. It's
Well,
so true. Yeah. It's so true. And so,
and so many that are so many that are going into social work
mhm,
are they're choosing that career path because they have their own injuries
Mhm.
within their family. So they're coming with their own stuff and trying to work out things themselves that way. So yes, in one way that's good,
Yes,
and
in
the other
one
way
way.
is like you can't work it out with other people who are dealing with huge trauma.
No, 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 absolutely not. It's called re-triggering and re-traumatizing, and then you've got a real cocktail, right? It's like,
Yeah.
yeah. So, now that you're living where you're living and it's in nature, beautiful, how has that changed how you see the world and your purpose?
Oh, wow, that's a broad.
Yeah.
So I know that my path in life is to be in service.
Mhm.
And and yet I'm challenged regularly around, where my healthy boundary is.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
my recharging needs to be in nature. So almost every day I'm down at the beach with my goofball Dane and just walking.
Oh,
And that
beautiful.
a 10-minute walk changes your brain chemistry. I know that I need to walk the walk, literally,
Mhm.
in order to manage the stories, just the stories from other people.
Yeah.
So I have right on my doorstep a way to give me the medicine that I need. And I recognize that if I don't do what I need to do, I'm not fully present for the next person. So keeping up with my own mental wellness, it's an exercise like going to the gym.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I can't imagine being anywhere else on the planet. Other opportunities have shown up
Mhm.
working in tropical countries. Was not quite as much rain as here. But no,
Yeah.
this is home. This is absolutely home.
Well, they're very fortunate to have you. And you often work with people and animals who feel out of place, right? So how do you help them find their place in their world again?
They find it.
Oh, I love
So,
that.
yeah, I am just walking beside them,
Mhm.
um, and listening to them, and when they have some sort of a dream, how are we gonna get there?
Mhm.
And giving some practical solutions to things. And I was having an animal in tow, so currently my dog is my ambassador.
Mm.
And just last week, there was two elderly women whose jaws dropped and smiling as I pulled into the parking lot at the grocery store. And I made sure I parked beside them. I said, all the kids want to say hi to Fergal. And by the end of the conversation, it was, 10 minutes of spending time with him, and he rubs up against them and gives them his best, gooey eyes. And both of the ladies cried and went, I
Aw.
had no idea how much I missed my dogs because they had to give up their dogs because of being seniors and moving
Right.
into a stage of life. And
Oh,
so I gave them
wow.
a card and just said, if you ever want to go for a dog walk or you just want Goofball to come over and have a visit,
Aw.
and it was just, that kind of interaction. And yeah, I am so blessed to have that as a tool that is an immediate relief.
Mhm.
It was tears of joy and love because Fergal was putting on his best Fergal.
Oh, I bet he was. Oh my god, it's priceless. I love it. Oh my gosh. So, what role does intuition play with all this, like, in your work, especially when reading both animals and people?
Well, it really is a part of that ancestral tapping into listening
Mhm.
to the environment, not just the person, but the environment around them, because you can feel an energy field around people
Right.
and knowing what's safe and what isn't safe to talk about.
Mhm.
It, I don't think there's any book or any schooling that can teach you that. And being able to really exercise your intuition and trusting your gut feeling about a situation. Now I talk about, just being in your head all the time as the itty
Right?
bitty shitty committee because
Yeah,
it'll
yeah.
talk you out of all sorts of things. But really going into that energy where you can feel where a person is coming from
Mhm.
and holding space. You don't have to say any wise words. You know, sometimes it's all Fergal doing his thing, but just, or a horse doing their thing, is just about holding space for people.
Mhm. Mhm.
And people want to share for the most part.
Yes, they
You
do.
know, as I said, the propane guy to whomever starts to disclose once they know that this is what your path is in life. And people need to feel connected,
Yeah,
belonging.
absolutely. The
Yeah.
bonds, the bonds are so broken with, for so many people, right? That it's about that whole thing of connection again. So,
Yeah.
if you could, share one truth with every parent raising a neurodivergent child, what would it be?
Wow. Every time I ask parents of a child on the spectrum, as a for
Mhm.
instance, how are you doing?
Mhm.
There's one or the other one that look at me in shock that I'm asking them. So it is about ensuring that you have supports as well as a child. I mean, there's always a shortage for children for services that are out there,
Mhm.
but the parents really need, because you'll get depleted and
Mhm.
your frustration tolerance level will lower, and you may feel that there is a trauma associated with this. There's the other aspect of epigenetics, and that
Mhm.
how things get played out or generation after generation, and to be able to stop that trauma. But yeah, parents need to take care of themselves
Mhm.
in order to be there for their children.
Yeah.
And I have a philosophy that may not fly with many people,
Mm.
but well, with some people.
Right.
I find children on the spectrum are so much more sensitive to the environment and to others because of their neurodivergence. And I think that it is actually where we're going to, that we've lost so much in terms of being able to be intuitive with each other. And children know right away, these children know good people, bad people, the need to be away from the chaos of city
Mhm.
and to be in a quieter, more sustainable environment. And I learn so much from every child that I work with about looking at the world differently. They
Mm.
see light differently, they hear sound differently, they feel their clothing differently. If there's too much going on around them, if the routine is not there, it tells us that
Mhm.
as a society, we need to check ourselves because we're becoming unwell because of the chaos that's around us.
Right. Exactly. And that's what I was going to ask you next is how do you think humanity is being invited to evolve right now? I mean, and what is the role of animals in this evolution?
Well, animals don't have ego
Mm.
in their approach.
Mhm.
And so their only concern is being present, being fed, being taken care of, and they read their environment regularly. They have to for safety in the
Mhm.
herd or as a lone animal. And so learning how even how dogs are so connected with us, that they check in with us, that they are excited and enthused when you walk through the door, even if you've only been gone for 30 seconds.
Ex
It's like, "Oh my god, you're back." So we have so much more to learn from the animals in our environment, and Western society has we have huge populations now of dogs and cats in the family home as a part of the family,
Right?
and then those animals are seen as making you feel good and having fun. So, yeah, we need to have fun and we need to feel good.
Mhm.
And also you need grass to go for a pee on. Like we need more greenery in our life and to seek out nature. Like there's forest bathing in Japan where going out into the forest, how many people can feel angry when you're in the forest? You go for a walk, you start feeling better. I was hugging trees all over the place during the pandemic
Mhm.
because you feel that energy and
Absolutely.
we
It was
just, yeah.
the one thing I learned how to do very well in Nelson and taught my grandson how to do, and now teach my other 2 grandchildren how to hug trees. And they, at first they look at you like, Nana, you're crazy. And then the next thing you know, every time you go with them, they go, "Can we hug a tree?"
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So,
Yeah.
we're coming to, unfortunately, the end of our chat for today, and we will continue another day. But, Theo, what legacy or message, do you hope your work leaves behind, especially for the next generation of healers?
Wow. Another big question, Colli.
Well, I know you've got good answers, so I like to ask them.
Well, my legacy, oh, wow, that's a biggie. I just want people to reconnect with the natural world
Mm,
in all its forms and to see how we need to have a more symbiotic relationship
mhm,
with earth, animal, everything. And that seeing how eagerly the domesticated animals in our lives try to find the way to make us feel better.
mm.
And that's such a gift.
It is.
Such a gift. So, kiss your kitty or your puppy or your horse or your mm, chinchilla. I don't care what it is. Just to know that they see you in a beautiful way and just look in the mirror and see yourself in that same beautiful way.
Oh, it's beautiful. Oh, it's so true. It's so true. I have been without an animal now for,
Mm.
uh, well, coming up to 5. Well, yeah, almost 5 years. And yeah, but I have, my 3 when I go over to visit my daughter. And so it's just like light up your lifetime when you show up, right? I was going to ask you in closing, one of your favorite 2 questions yet. One of your favorite moments, because I can't say goodbye to you. Favorite, what was your, so far, your favorite moment with Fergal?
Gosh.
I know you got lots, but
So I was at horse races today called Point to Point. So it's out on a farmer's field
right?
and it's like a steeplechase. So they're going over jumps and it's a race and they have the
Mhm,
bookies there and so on. And the number of people, particularly children, coming
mm,
over to say hi to Fergal, and I'd let them all give him a treat. And then the regulars that go to all the races, including the bookies, I'm hearing Fergal, Fergal,
oh,
all these people that know him. He just brings so much joy into strangers' lives and the kids and being able, you always remember your first Great Dane who's looking you straight in the eyes and then he's gently taking a treat from you. So
aw.
I am so honored to have him as my co-pilot in life.
Oh, yeah, well, there's that song by Sting, right? Let your, the soul be your guide. And they really are like a pilot, right? Our soul is our pilot and they're an extension of that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So Theo, if you were to be an animal, what would you be?
I was torn between horse and dog.
Oh,
I I probably come back as a dog because
okay.
yeah, there's a lot of couch potato time depending
Yeah.
on the home that you're brought into.
Hmm.
Just that companionship if you find the right home. So
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Lots of cuddles and strokes, right? And lots of treats.
Ideally, ideally, yeah.
Oh my God. Well, this has been a real treat for me. And I love you, love you, love you so much. I'm so grateful that you've honored, us today with your presence. And I can't wait to share this with everyone that was my audience, but now is your audience as well. And I will have your information posted on, the promo piece so that people can reach out to you,
Thank
because I know there will be people that will want to be in touch with you. So as I said before, I'm so honored and humbled, and I love you, love you, love you, girl. So thank you so much for gracing me with your presence.
Well, love you too. This is just, I'm so delighted. Any information that people can pick up from the session and know that your dogs really do want to make things better for you.
Mhm,
And they're
mhm.
just trying to figure it out.
Yep. Exactly. Well, my dear, until next time. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you so much.